Sorry, hope I didn't scare any of the cute babies we have here today. Welcome to House Judiciary, folks. We have a packed agenda. We are going to be taking testimony on House Bill 5389, House Bills 4902, 4903, and SB 351. We will be voting on and taking brief testimony on House Bills 4062, 4063, and Senate Bills 205, 206, and 207. To the mothers and babies here, I do not care if your children are crying. I'm happy to have them here. Don't worry about a thing or causing any disruptions. We've got a lot of mamas and a few mamas to be up here. So let us start now with, wait, hold on. Sorry, I got to take attendance. Let's do that.
Chair Breen.
Present.
Representatives Edwards. Carter.
Here.
Hope. Here. Arbit. Devendorf.
Here.
Hoskins.
Here.
Cerniglu.
Here.
Fink. Wenzel.
Here.
Bosniak.
Here.
Outman.
Here.
Johnson. Here. Madam Chair, you have 10 members present. You do have a quorum.
Thank you. I will take a motion from Representative Carter to approve and adopt the minutes from the previous meeting. Those are now approved. I note that we have several members not here. Traffic sucks. We're fixing all the roads at the same time. So I expect some people will be showing up. I would like to now call Representative Brixey with, I think it's her daughter, up to testify on House Bill 5389.
Hello, Madam Chair. Thank you. I am not here with my daughter. My daughter is virtually going to be appearing. Thank you, Chairwoman and members of the committee. I'm here because when someone gets married in Michigan, they can adopt the name of their spouse. Either spouse, their name given at birth, or a name that combines their surnames. It's easy to do, and it's free when you pay your $20 marriage license fee. And the state recognizes that marriage is a very, very, very common reason for name change and doesn't indicate anything nefarious, such as trying to get away with and escape your debts. When I got married, I didn't change my name. My husband and I kept our names, and my kids all have my last name as their middle name and my husband's last name. We didn't want to burden our children with the hyphenated names Brixey Schetzel. That's a mouthful. So when our daughter got married, said Schetzel, she called me and was very upset to discover that changing her name was going to require a name change petition. And that's a very different process than the marriage name change. And so learning that was the reason that I'm here before you with this bill. My bill would simply modernize our laws and allow couples to change their surname to a completely new name on the marriage license, the way a traditional couple already can. And we are going to hear from two different people who went through this process. First up is Madeline March Mina.
Hello. My name is Madeline March Mina, so I burdened myself with a hyphenated name. I've been married for almost 5 years in July, and my husband and I really wanted to have the same last name. But I wasn't super connected with my last name growing up. And I lived in a family that had multiple last names, and I always wanted to be a part of everybody else. And so that was really important to me. So my husband kept his Mina, and I came up with March. I love Little Women. I loved it before this most recent movie. But I'm a big reader, and it was really important to me to have a family that I related to. And so it was really exciting that we were able to make a name that was our own. It was so hard. We did this back when we were both, I was about to start grad school at MSU, and he was a law student, a third-year law student at MSU. And we thought we did everything right. We went to the county clerk. We had, we were like, this is my name, this is his name, this is what we want it to be. Will we be able to change that with a marriage license? And they said yes. When we got married at City Hall, we asked the magistrate again, is this okay? We'll be able to change this with the marriage. Again, both times kind of some hesitation because it's a non-traditional thing to do, as you said, but both times they said yes. And then later we got something in the mail that said we had flown too close to the sun and needed to come back in. And so we had to go through a really long process, and we were sent to a lot of different offices and given different explanations of how things would work, how we could remedy the situation. And in the end, we weren't able to keep the marriage certificate that we had the day that we were married because it wasn't valid because those weren't actually our names. So we had to go, and I had to write Madeline Robling, he had to write Ross Mina, we had to go find our witnesses again, they had to sign everything, and so it was a long process. It was hard to get waivers. We were both, like I said, in grad school, and so it's costly to change your name in that formal way as well, more costly than just the marriage certificate. And so this is something that's really important to the both of us, and I would love it to be easier for other people because it did make us feel like maybe we had done something wrong. So thank you so much.
Thank you for your testimony. I also like Little Women, and I also have legally a hyphenated name. My maiden name is Hough, and people said every day, and as a substitute, if I had a substitute teacher, they'd say, oh, is Kelly Hogue here? So I actually was happy to change my name. It's pronounced Huff, by the way. Thank you for sharing that story. I understand we also have Annika.
Annika Snow.
Annika on Zoom. Annika?
My name is Annika Brixie Snow. I am no longer a Schetzel. I got married in September 2022, and in May of that year, my spouse and I purchased a house. And due to the economy in this day and age, we had to scale back our wedding because of the cost of buying the house alone. And that was fine. But when we looked at our last names were Schetzel and Overitis. And hyphenating that was not an option for us. So we looked at other options, and my mother-in-law's last name is Snow, and she only has sisters. So none of her family has ever been able to take on the Snow name. And we said that would be something that would mean a lot to us. It would mean a lot to her, and it would be easier to pronounce for a lot of people. So we went that route, and we were told the same thing. Because the name is on your marriage license, you can just write Annika Brixie Snow as your new married name. And when we went to file it, they said, actually, this is not valid. You do need to legally file for your name change. So we did the same thing. We had to track down new witnesses. We had to sign a new marriage license, the whole works. And between filing the documents and getting fingerprinted and getting a background check and publishing it in the newspaper, we ran a bill of about $500. So due to that cost alone, we had to put off getting our name changed for over 6 months because our house needed work, and honestly, that came first. So it was difficult to see a lot of our friends and family were trying to refer to me as Annika Snow and giving gifts for our marriage in that name, that we were saying, you have to address it as Annika Schetzel still. And so it would mean a lot to me and to my mom, of course, if you would support a bill that would treat us as the same as all other married couples, because a lot of people in this day and age are going non-traditional routes with their names, and it would mean a lot to help couples like me start our lives without this additional stress. So thank you.
Thank you, Annika, for being with us today. I see we have some questions. I also want to just also quickly say thank you for bringing this forward. And I have some concerns, but there's nothing like having a hearing to bring everybody out of the woodwork. And it's my understanding that some of the things that are in this bill are already legal. And I want to figure out what we already have in place and whether or not we need to make any tweaks. And I'm wondering if you've received any opinions from any local judges or clerks.
So we ran it past SCAO and MSP, and they had no concerns. The Secretary of State supports, and they did not flag anything with the language that would be of a conflicting nature. We did not run it through the clerks. I'm happy to do that prior to the next meeting.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Representative Devendorf, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Brixey, for bringing this forward. I have a question related to how far this goes. My ex-husband and I, hyphenated our names, so I made another Devendorf out of somebody. However, when we got divorced, it was quite easy for me to change my name back, and it was much more difficult for him. I don't even know that it happened. I'm sure it did. Does this extend to making it a simpler process to change your name back? Because I really did feel bad for him that it was an extra process. And if not, is that something that we could look at?
I do not believe that is part of this process, but I can certainly look at it. And I do know that the name change for divorce is somewhat burdensome, because we have had constituents that have had that same problem, especially if they maybe lived in and got married in a different state. If they're older, sometimes those are the constituent nature concerns that we've had. That may be a second bill, but I can also look into that and get that information for you as well.
Okay. Representative Fink.
Yeah, just a technical question. One of you mentioned, I think, that it's more expensive to do the petition rather than I take that it's more expensive. How expensive is it? What are the technical costs?
It's a lot. It's free. When you get married, if your wife took your name, it's free. You pay $20 for the marriage license, and it's included in that. But if you take an entirely new last name, it costs $175 to
The
do
filing fee for the petition.
Name petition. Then you need a criminal background check, which is $43.25, includes fingerprinting.
Okay.
And, the purpose for that, I have no objection to the purpose for that. The purpose for that is that
Other people in the House do, just so you know. We have another bill to eliminate that criminal background check requirement, so that might go away independently. But I don't mean, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Just that's an issue that's also out there.
I think the original thinking is to prevent fraud from someone from going out, running up a bunch of debts, then changing their name and trying to get away and not pay their debts, right? And this is simply modernizing the marital aspect of name change to recognize that people do some different things with their names than they did whenever this bill was written, probably over 100 years ago.
Okay, so the extra costs, as you say, if you're doing it in conjunction with a marriage certificate, then you pay the $20 whether you change your name or not. So in that sense, it's no additional cost to change your name. And if you have to do it in some by petition, it'd be 175 plus the 43 whatever for the background. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, and it's nice to meet your daughter. What's the difference in the paper trail or the record trail between petitioning for a name change and doing it this way?
It involves publishing in the paper is included in that, and the fingerprinting, I think, to see if you have any, crimes that you're associated with. I am going to assume maybe financial crimes, but I am not entirely sure as to the why, all of the why that goes into that name change. But I just know that it's burdensome. And I think that it was interesting that both my daughter and Madeline here were told when they went to get the license, oh yeah, just put your new name down, it's fine. And then found out, no, that's not fine. And so that information they were getting from the clerks, that was incorrect information.
Thank you. I guess I didn't ask it right. Do we still have a paper trail? Do we still have a record of
Yes,
name
we have a
change
marriage license. I'm sorry. Yes, we have a marriage license. Just like today, when you change your name, it's linked back to your marriage license.
So if someone did have a record or a suspicion or a lawsuit or whatever, they could still, the system could still find them?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Representative Wozniak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative, I'm looking at the bill. It doesn't look like it takes into account any name change for a first name. And I'm not
No.
sure of the rules.
Right. It's just last name.
Okay, but if you wanted to change your first name and last name, it's the petition
It's a
process.
different process, yeah. I'm not aware of people wanting to change their first name because they're getting married.
Okay,
I mean, I'm sure it could happen.
yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony, and we will continue discussions.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And I'm now going to read
committee
in, we
members.
have a card in support from the American Association of University of Women of Michigan to support House Bill 5389. We also have a card in support not wishing to testify from Melissa Horsty from the Department of State. That's it? All right, thank you. I'm now going to call up Alexi Chapin-Smith, Legislative Director for Senator Irwin, to discuss Senate Bill 351. Thank you. Tell us about the bill.
Good morning. Thank you for providing us the opportunity to testify on this bill. Senator Irwin introduced Senate Bill 351 because he was approached by some breastfeeding advocates who made a case that he felt was very convincing that when we made this law to protect the rights of breastfeeding people in public, we left out an important piece, that is that when you are breastfeeding, you frequently need to pump several times a day if you're not with your child or if your child isn't able to breastfeed directly. And you may need to do this in a place where there is not a facility available for you to do it, or with more modern breast pumps, there's a way to wear them under your clothes in public, and we just don't want people to feel that they are going to be in any way discriminated against for doing what they need to feed their child. So we have some advocates here who are here to testify to it, but that is the basic reasoning of the bill, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
My son was born with a cleft palate, so I could not nurse. I had to pump all the time. That was my life. Pump, feed, pump, feed.
I had
And-
a similar experience with both of my children.
It's not fun, and my prior job, there was not a place for me to do this. And I know that we've made some accommodations here in the Capitol for some of our legislators, but we're not seeing this everywhere. I do think this is an important piece of legislation. My one question to you is, have there been incidents that you're aware of where women who are expressing milk have been discriminated against?
The incidents that I have heard about personally have occurred more in places that might not be under jurisdiction, like airplanes, especially when you're on a long flight and you're trying to pump under a blanket or things. And I don't know that this law would reach that because there's a jurisdiction issue with airplanes in particular. But I do know that I personally have felt that I couldn't pump when I needed to because there was no place to do it. And that if I were feeling more confident that I couldn't be expelled from a public place for doing that, I could have avoided some complications like black ducks and things like that.
Those aren't fun.
No.
Okay. Thank you for being here. If you could hang out in case we have some additional questions.
Would
We
you like
have,
me to remain here, or
Pardon?
would you like me to remain here, or?
You can just have a seat. I'm gonna call up Shannon McKenney. Yes, you may bring the baby. I hope you do, actually.
I'm actually going to bring a colleague, Tamika White, with me as well, if that's
Bring all the babies. That's great.
all right. So, hi, everyone. Thank you for having us. Thank you, Chair Breen, for giving us the opportunity to testify about this. I'm actually here also with my daughter, Josephine, who was testified in front of the House Judiciary when we passed the bill initially in 2014. So, you can see. Oh, I thought I said Samantha. Oh, sorry. My daughter's Samantha. Sorry. I'm a little nervous. My bad. 10-year-old.
It happens. I have a 10-year-old young lady. Would you like to have a seat next to your mom?
Have a seat, baby. So, to your question about folks that that run into issues with this, I think that Alexi handled that really well in sharing that yes, this is an issue. One of the issues that we have here in Michigan is 86% of families initiate human milk feeding. If any of you are parents, a lot of you are, you know that anything that 86% of us agree on is wild, right? There's nothing that 86% of parents actually all want to do, right? But within a few weeks and days even, those rates plummet. And one of the reasons is because it is so hard to exist in public as someone who pumps. 90% of Michigan families express their milk at some point during their breastfeeding journey. And without the protection to do so in a public space, a lot of times people will say, I can no longer breastfeed because I have to exist in public in order to, feed my other children or to, do the other things that are necessary in, 2024, the way that our society is structured now. So when we first worked on this bill, the idea was we were the 47th state to actually pass a breastfeeding protection bill. And there are now all 50 states have a public breastfeeding protection bill. But none of the laws so far protect public milk expression. And what we call an expansion of the law, what this expansion of the law does is protects those families like yours, right? Where there's a baby who has like a facial difference, right? Where feeding at the breast isn't feasible. There's also a lot of families with babies in the NICU. When a baby's in the NICU, the mother often is pumping on the hour, trying to keep milk supply up while they are forcibly separated, right? For all the right reasons, right? You want the baby to be there and be protected and be getting healthy, but they have to be separated. And there are children in the foster care system who their only connection to their biological family is through their human milk and the courier service that brings them that milk. And then there are also, mothers who make the decision not to have baby to the breast, maybe for, reasons of prior sexual assault, not feeling confident or comfortable to have a baby at the breast. Human milk is, we call it liquid gold, right? It is foundational to the health of the individual, to the community, and to society. And we all really need to work together to make sure that any family can feed their baby in the way that they want to, in the way that they need to. And we believe that expanding this law will make it so that so many more families are able to continue forward and feed their babies human milk for the duration that they desire, which, as you know, most health organizations recommend 2 years of breastfeeding. And that's just not possible for so many families if they can't do it in public. So, Tamika, can I pass it over to you?
Yes. Good morning. Thanks for having us. I want to start by saying that for many Black and brown women and people living in poverty, the ability to freely express breast milk is a pre-contemplation issue. Going to work is at the forefront, going back to work is at the forefront of many marginalized women's mind as they are deciding how they will feed. Mm-hmm. My personal experience with breastfeeding 22 years ago was that I was in a welfare to work program. And then we did not have pumping laws. And the more that I learned about the pumping laws, the more that I felt excited. But seeing it in real day-to-day life as a WIC peer counselor, the laws just did not go far enough. Actually, 22 years ago, I was discriminated against in a program because there was no place for me to pump. So I sat with engorgement all day. And once I did return to the workforce, I pumped in healthcare at home setting next to my client's litter box. Today, employers are asking mothers, even with the SLA, to pump in bathrooms. And they are telling mothers that we cannot tolerate that here. they cannot even have the ability to bond with their child after birth, because at the forefront of their mind is returning to work. I can't breastfeed because I have to go back to work. They don't have a place for me to pump at my job. And so we have to, as breastfeeding supporters, we have to suggest all of these things and provide helps for them to be able to navigate around something that should be protected under the law.
Yeah.
And as a breastfeeding supporter and helper, I thought for sure, fundamentally, that pumping was covered under that law until I got this advocacy initiative a few months ago, and it was a, what? What do you mean? So I had even counseled moms about breastfeeding and told them that they could express their milk in public, covered or uncovered, and I was wrong.
Yeah.
And so I really encourage you to pass this bill to increase the initiation of breastfeeding and duration.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your experiences. I'm sure they're not unlike a lot of moms have experienced. So I do not see any questions. So thank you for your testimony today. Thank you for sharing your children with us for these little moments of joy.
We bring the giggles and the
So-
coos, right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to read in some cards. We just had Shannon McKinney testify in favor. We just had Tamika White from Lacked Power testify in favor. I have Natasha Basima from Next Generation Family supporting the bill, not wishing to speak. Rebecca Maurer Amstute from Lansing Baby Cafe supporting the bill, not wishing to speak. Allison Horn from the Lansing Baby Cafe and Next Gen Family Services supporting the bill, not wishing to speak. Megan Adamszewski, Nurse Family Partnership, supporting the bill, not wishing to speak. Heath Lowry from the Michigan Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence, supporting the bill, not wishing to speak. The YWCA of Kalamazoo, supporting the bill, not wishing to speak. And the American Association of University of Women of Michigan, also supporting the bill, not wishing to speak. Thank you, everybody, for your input, and we are now going to move on to the next bills. We have House Bills 4902 and 4903. Representative Stephanie Young, come and join us.
I don't have any babies, so it won't be that exciting, but thank you so much, Madam Chair and members of the Judiciary Committee. I am here today to talk to you all about a couple of consumer protection bills. I don't know if you all are familiar with something that's been happening, not necessarily in Michigan, because we have some good actors, but it's been happening across the country. And that is consumers are being hit with smoking fees when they rent cars and return them, and when they rent hotel rooms and check out. And they leave those places, they leave the car, they leave the hotel room, and then down the road, weeks or sometimes even months, a fee will pop up on their credit card statement saying, hey, we discovered that you were smoking in your room, and now we need you to pay us, or now we've already taken $250, or in some cases more. And so in talking to a couple of people, we even have a colleague who has experienced that. I won't name any names, but we have a colleague who has experienced that personally. And so we got to thinking, what can we do to prevent these surprise fees when you're thinking you're all good, when you return your car and when you check out of your hotel room. So what we came up with is something that will be optional for the consumer. The consumer can ask for a clearance. When they return their rental car, they can get it signed off, no smoking fees here. And when they leave, they have the confidence and security of knowing that there will be no surprises later on down the road. The same thing would happen with a hotel room. When you leave, it will be checked off that there will be no surprise smoking fees. So you have, again, the confidence of knowing that when you closed out that account, you're good. Now, what we also wanted to share is if this happens, when it has happened before, it's a he said, she said. Because if you leave and you get that fee, there's really no way to prove that it wasn't you. And that's one of the reasons that it's important to push this forward. I believe that it's fair to say that it's optional. Not every person will have their room cleared, but if you request to have your room cleared, and if you request to have your car cleared, then you should be able to do that. And so that is why we're here today, to ask the committee to consider this legislation, and I am ready to receive any questions.
Thank you, Representative Young. We had some conversations about these bills. I know
Yes.
there are some parties who want to be supportive but aren't quite there. We're going to call them up in a minute.
Yeah.
From what I understand, they are concerned about some of the logistical aspects and implementation, not necessarily the concept, but just how can we actually make this happen. I'm wondering, do you happen to know how does a person currently dispute any fees that are issued? And do you know how often that might be happening? Do they even get the money back if they dispute it?
Yeah, so it gets tricky. So sometimes the best way to fight it is through your credit card company, because now it could be considered fraudulent. And so people will take that avenue. People will go directly to either the rental car company or the hotel to try to dispute the fees. But they're less successful at that end because now there's just no proof whether or not you've done it. And so most of them will stand by whoever discovered, quote unquote, that there was smoking in that room. The unfortunate thing is there have been instances where people have never smoked a day in their lives, and they're getting these smoking fees, and that's what makes it really egregious because they know it wasn't them. Personally, when I've gone to rent a car before, and if I smelled the smoke on the front end, just because I'm really involved in this, I will let them know. Oftentimes, people won't do that. There'll be a car that will smell like smoke and Febreze. And as soon as the Febreze wears off, all you have left is smoke, whether you smoke or not. And if you don't know your rights, you'll just think it's okay, I need this car, I'm gonna go ahead. And now that the Febreze is gone, now you have the smoke. Now you're the person who gets the fee, and you never did it.
Okay. And I know our Consumer Protection Act in Michigan definitely needs some lifting up and some tweaks. And I'm glad to see consumer protection bills being brought forth. One of the things I have heard a concern about is vaping, because that doesn't necessarily leave the same scent as regular cigarette smoke. Have you given any consideration as to how that might be addressed?
I had not, but we can.
Okay. My husband is a teacher, and I can tell you he gets a little ding on his phone anytime somebody is vaping in the high school bathroom. And so that's one of the logistical concerns that has been brought to my attention. So thank you for bringing these forward. And I'm going to, if you want to stick around, I'm going to call some other folks up. Oh, we have a question from Representative Fink. I'm sorry, Representative, didn't see it till now.
That's no worries. Thank you, Madam Chair. Very quick question from my seatmate across the aisle. If you're thinking about specifically about the hotel one, I understand the car rental, the timing is different, whatever. Wouldn't you want to have the inspection at the beginning? In other words, don't you want to agree whether it smells like smoke before you assume possession of the room?
So that's one of those things that I believe the consumer would do naturally. When I go into a room, if I smell smoke, I alert the hotel right now. The biggest thing is when you check out. Because most people, if you're not a smoker, you're not going to stay in the room that smells like smoke. So I don't necessarily have a concern on the front end. It's on the back end. And again, there are different air fresheners, things that are covering up, and then days down the road, now that that's gone, now you're stuck with this stale smell, smoke smell that could potentially lead to a fine or rather a fee. And that's what I'm really trying to prevent.
I do think that you're destroying the dreams of many college boys by noting that Febreze wears off, but
They better get ready.
but yeah, and I follow what you're saying, I think, but I mean, assume it's one of those college boys who isn't so worried about how the room smells. It would seem to me like for it to function, you'd maybe want to require that the renter at least state at the beginning if they think that the smoke was there at the beginning, like that they need to know. I don't know. I mean, because what if I agree that the room smells like smoke and I didn't say anything at the beginning, but I say, well, that's what it smelled like when I got here. You know what I mean? That's not really he said, she said. We actually agree on the fact that it smells. I'm just denying that I made it smell. But a hotel could reasonably say, well, you didn't say anything 3 days ago when you got here or whatever. You know, that's
I hear what you're saying.
okay.
Something to consider.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Thank
Representative. Yes.
I don't think the little green pine trees work either. So, Representative Carter?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Real quick, as a person who travels a lot, usually you have to be out of a hotel by a certain time. And I think it would work better if there was a timeliness issue. You shouldn't have to wait 1 or 2 months to figure out that you're going to charge me for that.
Right.
And, you know, consumers have to do a checklist. We go in with the Lysol, we spray everything down. I mean, most people do after COVID.
Right.
But even with a car rental, they started this with marijuana because you could rent a car, it was smelling like that. So I look for the balance as a person who's never smoked in my life. Right. I know the smell, I won't be around it. But we also have to be mindful of the society we live in, too. Almost everything's legal. So, but people have to have a recourse when you're using their stuff. So I think a timeliness limit would help. You know, if you know within a week that we find out this was the deal and a way to dispute this. But we have to look on both sides of this. And I think the burden is on the person renting or renting the room or the place, like you say, on the front end.
Exactly.
I inspect my cars when I rent them first because some of them have been dented and not reported, and you'll be held accountable for it at the end. So I think a timeliness thing would help.
Yeah, and you know, the other piece to this is making certain that everybody understands on the front end what these fees are. Sometimes it could be in the fine print, but we want people to be clear about what to expect. Is it going to be $250? Because once I know on the front end, you could potentially get fined $200, $300, $400. Now I'm paying even more attention. And when you're talking about timeliness, I don't know, I'm guessing the time is now. When at checkout, I need to know that I'm going to be good. So when you say timeliness, I'm trying to understand what you mean, Representative.
So like with a car rental,
Yeah.
you drop it off, you leave. They may have 1 or 2 people working it. They don't have time to go watch it, clean it, inspect it. You'll find that out down the road. So how far down the road when they re-rent that vehicle is the question. So my issue is a timeliness issue. You can't put this on me if you've done that. So, and realistically, nobody reads all the fine print when they rent anything.
Exactly. That's why we're wanting to make that bigger, bolder, so that we're clear.
They still
that
not gonna read it.
potentially happen. You said they still not going to read it. They may not read it, but at least they'll know. And back to the timeliness, I'm still not. I'm personally not clear about this. Of course, we can talk about it offline, because if I'm the consumer and I'm returning the car, when I return the car, somebody, if it's at the airport, they meet you right there. Right, they're already there. While you're checking the mileage, can you inhale and exhale at the same time? I don't think it's that hard. You can inhale and exhale at the same time, and then we can agree or disagree right there.
To that point, most places now, when you take your rental car back, you just put it in a slot.
You have the option to do that. And this
90% of people do it.
This legislation, once again, is optional. Okay. If you are in a hurry and you want to go, potentially, maybe that's when you're talking about the time. And you're saying, oh, snap, I got to go. I don't have time to stick around. And then maybe we can talk about some type of after this point. But usually, car rentals, hotel operations, they're cleaning their property as soon as they get it to be able to make it available for the next person.
Sounds like we got some logistics to work through.
Yeah.
Representative Cerniglu.
So kind of, well, first, thank you for, bringing the legislation. I, not opposed, just, again, some logistical things similar to what Rep. Carter said, mainly in reference to the hotel. I think on no occasion would I ever want to wait for anyone to check the room before leaving, because it's usually just like, we don't check out. We just, pack up and go. We don't even tell the hotel what time we're leaving because we're trying to catch a flight or, make it to the next location. And I also don't think the hotels would in a lot of cases have someone available to go do that, because just from a lot of experiences trying to get a hotel to do something. Takes a while. So I almost wonder if it might just be not where they have to sign or do it right away before you leave, but they just have to do it within 24 hours or some, like when the next person cleans the room. Maybe that's part of their checklist as they evaluate it for, for smoking. I mean, I guess I could see why you want it before you leave, because then you can dispute it right then and there, although that might not be something someone wants to do when they're leaving the hotel right then and there either. So I definitely support, the concept behind it. I guess my concern is just in the implementation of doing it. And then again, how people would even know that was but I did see that you have where they have to notify you in the room and leave a paper or something.
Yeah, we've been talking about that. I've been talking about that with folks in the industry. And those are some of the things that we're still working out. But let's be clear, because we're in the legislature and we know how things go. Until you get a committee hearing, you don't get conversations. And so I'm grateful that you allowed there to be a hearing so that now we can work through some of these logistics. So thank you so much, Madam Chair. Thank you for your question.
Thank you for bringing the hotel, motel, inhale, exhale bills. And I'm going to call now John McNamara up to our table. Here to testify in opposition to 4903, so just the hotel, motel part, I think. John McNamara from the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Breen and members of the committee. I'm here today to offer our opposition to 4903, but want to continue to work with Representative Young toward a solution if possible. And many of you have made my points for me already, so I appreciate that. But I'm going to highlight three separate areas where we have some concerns. On the check-in piece, whenever I travel, which is somewhat frequently, they'll say, you're in a standard non-smoking room, and I sign the piece of paper, it's in there. But then there are hotels that have invested significant amounts of money where you can check in on your phone is your room key, and if you don't want to talk to or see another person, you don't have to. And we just want to make sure that that would be protected. Secondly, if this is a good policy for hotels and motels and resorts, it's a good policy for short-term rentals. I will never take an opportunity not to argue for industry parity.
I think we said we aren't going to talk about short-term rentals at all. Thank you.
Lastly, I do want to speak to sort of the logistical pieces that have been brought up. So I reached out to a year-round resort, a seasonal resort, a boutique hotel, and then a franchisee operator. And all just had logistical concerns. So on the resort side, you typically have a central check-in point, and then you drive to wherever you're staying. So if you went to check out, in theory, there would have to be a vehicle or some type of mode of transportation for staff to go there and check it. And if they checked the room with the guest, in the lodging world, it is incredibly rare where you have one employee and one guest in a closed room. So it would likely have to be two employees, which is protections for both parties. And then, obviously, this is going to take time, as Representative Cerniglu pointed out. So if it's in a checkout here, it's an inspection, it's delaying housekeeping from cleaning a room, it's delaying the next person from checking in. And you touched on this as well. Smoking is no longer a pack of cigarettes. With the legalization of marijuana and vaping and e-cigarettes being massively proliferated, you have hotel operators who have put sensors, like you mentioned in high school, where one puff on a vape or one puff out, it hits the sensor, they get a ding, and the fine is going to be there. So want to continue to collaborate, appreciate the committee's time, and you allowing me to testify, and happy to answer any questions.
I don't see any questions. Thank you for coming forward,
Thank
and please continue working with the sponsor. Now going to Zoom, we have Gregory Scott from the American Car Rental Association opposing House Bill 4902. Mr. Scott.
Can you hear me, Madam Chair?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
All right. First, thank you very much for allowing me to appear today. My name is Greg Scott. I work with the American Car Rental Association, and ACRA respectfully opposes House Bill 4902 for two basic reasons. One, the bill mistakenly presumes that remediating smoke damage to a rental car is a uniform procedure that costs the same no matter the vehicle type or where the vehicle takes where the service takes place. And the bill also requires that a car be taken out of service if the company initiates a smoking fee charge until the renter returns to inspect the vehicle, but doesn't set a timetable for the renter to return to inspect the car. ACRA respectfully asks the committee reject the measure as well intended but unworkable. We would be pleased to work with Representative Young on modifications to the bill if she's so inclined. ACRA is a national representative of 98% of the nation's car rental industry. If a visitor or a Michigan resident rents a car in Michigan, chances are they are renting it from an ACRA member. We oppose the bill for a couple of reasons. Requiring that car rental companies post the specific costs with respect to the costs for violating its no smoking policy at every single rental location across the state is impractical. Rental cars travel across the state and are rented at airport and neighborhood locations, as well as crossing state lines, making disclosure of remediation costs for every vehicle in every location impractical, if not impossible. The cost to remediate smoke damage to vehicles varies greatly by market. Detailing a vehicle in Detroit and detailing one in Muskegon will entail very different costs. Similarly, different vehicles, a Suburban, for example, versus a Bolt, costs different amounts to remediate or to do a detailing on. The bill also requires the vehicle involved in an alleged non-smoke or no smoking violation to be taken out of service until such time as the renter returns to inspect the vehicle. However, the bill does not set a time limit for the renter to return to inspect the car. He or she might not return for weeks, months, or quite frankly, forever. Such a public policy can only be described as punitive to the car rental company. The renter violated the non-smoking policy, or that's the allegation. The rental company can't clean the vehicle until the renter returns, and the renter has no obligation to return in a timely fashion, in fact, perhaps forever. Renters are entitled to be fully informed of a car rental company's non-smoking policies in a rental contract's terms and conditions, and it is in there, I guarantee you. And also by visible reminders of those policies, either in the car or at the rental location. ACRA fully supports such disclosures to our members' customers. The committee is considering House Bill 4903 today with respect to smoking policies in hotels. I'll simply make the point that car rentals and hotels are not the same. Hotel rooms don't move from one place to another. Hotel rooms aren't dropped off at different locations from where they were rented, and hotel rooms don't cross state lines. A public policy that may make sense for hotel rooms doesn't necessarily make sense for rental cars from ACRA's point of view. For these reasons, ACRA urges the committee to reject House Bill 4902. I'd be pleased to answer any questions my testimony may have raised. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your written and oral testimony today, especially noting how car rentals, they just might cross state lines. That can definitely raise some concerns. And I thank you for your willingness to work with the bill sponsor. And do we have any questions for this witness? It does not appear so. So thank you very much. Thank you, Representative Young. We are now going to turn to the source. Oh, we do have one card for me to read in. Supporting House Bill 4902, Ashley Steffen from the Department of the Attorney General, supporting the bill, not wishing to speak. Thank you. We're now going to turn to the source of income bills. Representative Morgan, come on down. We have here now House Bills 4602, 4062, 4063. We also have Senate Bills 205, 206, 207. It's to my understanding there's been some slicing and dicing. Can you please tell us about the substitutes?
Thank you so much, Chair Breen, Majority Vice Chair Edwards, and Minority Vice Chair Fink. You've heard testimony on this legislation already, so I'll be very brief. To just kind of refresh everybody on what these bills are, these are focused on housing access, which is a critical issue not just in my district, but across our state. House Bills 4062 through 4063 and Senate Bills 205 and 207 work together to prohibit landlords from discriminating against people based on their source of income. You know what? I will keep it very brief. You've heard about this legislation, but there's one key piece that I want to emphasize in my testimony here today, and it's that we have seen folks denied from housing based on their source of income over and over again. As chair of the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs Appropriations Subcommittee, we've been working really hard to ensure that every veteran has a safe place to live in our state. In this effort, the department has shared on more than one occasion that our veterans are facing discrimination due to their source of income in our state. Let me emphasize this again. Today in Michigan, there are currently veterans facing discrimination in housing. We need to end that. Veterans, the elderly, hardworking families should know that their basic right to housing in their community is being respected. This package would ensure that we are able to do that for those folks. Quick comments on the substitutes. The penalty for violating this act has been reduced from up to 4.5 times the monthly rent of the unit in question to up to 3 times the monthly rent as discussed last month. The requirements established by this package only extend to landlords with 5 or more rental units as discussed last month. And the rest of the changes and substitutes are for administrative purposes to make the 5 bills work together, such as moving where definitions and titles are located. There are no new changes to the function or policy of the bills, and the edits are otherwise technical in nature. Thank you so much for your time, and we're available for questions if you have any.
Representative Fink.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and thanks, Rep. Morgan, for being here. I just wanted to clarify, we didn't hear a lot of testimony about veterans issues in the testimony kind of in chief on this legislation. I understand you're saying that some veterans are affected by source of income issues, but you'd agree that that's not a particularly large percentage of the people who'd be affected by this legislation, right? In other words, it's not like this is tailored to veterans in any way.
I would argue that any veteran facing discrimination in housing is too much.
But would you argue that these bills are fundamentally about veterans issues or fundamentally about all other types of source of income?
Both.
I mean,
when we've been working on ending veteran homelessness, the comment that was made to me by the department was explicitly that veterans may be discriminated against in housing because of receiving a veteran housing voucher, and that is happening.
what percentage of the people who would be affected by this legislation are in that category?
It's a small percentage. I don't know the exact number, but the point is any veteran that faces housing discrimination because they're receiving their rightful veteran benefits for housing should not face discrimination.
If somebody were opposed to this legislation but might be open to one that was tailored to veterans, would that be a conversation you'd be interested in having?
No, only because I think that veterans are a critically important component of folks who need protection, but also so do other folks who receive their rental income from a voucher or a public benefit or anything else. So I would like to protect everyone at the same time rather than just one group of folks who are facing discrimination.
Okay, so it seems we agree that these bills are not really about veterans housing, but they're a general topic.
Representative, I'm going to say you're mischaracterizing what Representative Morgan is saying. That is not what he said.
As usual, when I'm accused of mischaracterization, I invite everybody to review the tape. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Anything else you'd like to add? Okay. Any questions from the committee? Okay. I note that we have a plethora of responses from the public here. I'm not going to read all these in. Everybody's responses and written testimony will be reflected in the minutes. We have probably dozens of emails and cards. So these are all going to be put into the minutes. Thank you to our clerk, who's very good about that. And we're going to now take some votes. So, thank you, Representative Morgan and company. Jacob. We have an H4 substitute for House Bill 4062. And I will take a motion from Representative Edwards to adopt the H4 substitute. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Chair Breen.
Aye.
Representatives Edwards.
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Hope.
Yes.
Arbit. Devendorf.
Yes.
Hoskins.
Yes.
Cerniglu.
Yes.
Fink.
Pass.
Wenzel.
No.
Wozniak.
Yes.
Outman.
Pass.
Johnson.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 7 yeas, 1 nay, 4 pass. The substitute is adopted.
Thank you. I will now take a motion to report House Bill 4062 as sub H4 with recommendation. Madam Clerk, please call the vote. Oh, from Representative Carter.
To report House Bill 4062 with recommendation as substitute H4. Chair Breen.
Aye.
Representatives Edwards.
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Hope.
Yes.
Arbit. Devendorf.
Yes.
Hoskins.
Yes.
Cerniglu.
Yes.
Fink.
No.
Wenzel.
No.
Wozniak.
No.
Outman.
No.
Johnson.
No.
Madam Chair, you have 7 yeas, 5 nays, 0 pass. The motion prevails.
Thank you. We have an H3 substitute for House Bill 4063. I'll take a motion from Representative Hope to adopt the H3 substitute. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Chair Breen.
Aye.
Representatives Edwards.
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Hope.
Yes.
Arbit. Devendorf.
Yes.
Hoskins.
Yes.
Cerniglu.
Yes.
Fink.
No.
Wenzel.
No.
Wozniak.
No.
Outman.
Pass.
Johnson.
No.
Madam Chair, you have 7 yeas, 4 nays, 1 pass. The substitute is adopted.
Thank you. I will now take a motion from Representative Devendorf to report House Bill 4063 as sub H3 with recommendation. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Chair Breen.
Aye.
Representatives Edwards.
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Hope.
Yes.
Arbit. Devendorf.
Yes.
Hoskins.
Yes.
Cerniglu.
Yes.
Fink.
No.
Wenzel.
No.
Wozniak.
No.
Outman.
No.
Johnson.
No.
Madam Chair, you have 7 yeas, 5 nays, 0 pass. House Bill 4063 is reported with recommendation as substitute H3.
Thank you. We are now moving to Senate Bill 205. We have an H1 substitute before the committee. I'll take a motion from Representative Hoskins to adopt the H1 substitute. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Chair Breen.
Aye.
Representatives Edwards.
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Hope.
Yes.
Arbit. Devendorf.
Yes.
Hoskins.
Yes.
Cerniglu.
Yes.
Fink.
No.
Wenzel.
No.
Wozniak.
No.
Outman.
Pass.
Johnson.
No.
Madam Chair, you have 7 yeas, 4 nays, 1 pass. The substitute is adopted.
Thank you. I will now take a motion from Representative Cerniglu to report Senate Bill 205 as sub H1 with recommendation. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Chair Breen.
Aye.
Representatives Edwards.
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Hope.
Yes.
Arbit. Devendorf.
Yes.
Hoskins.
Yes.
Cerniglu.
Yes.
Fink.
No.
Wenzel.
No.
Wozniak.
Nope.
Outman.
No.
Johnson.
No.
Madam Chair, you have 7 yeas, 5 nays, 0 pass. The motion prevails.
Thank you. We have an H1 substitute on Senate Bill 206 before the committee. I will take a motion from Representative Edwards to adopt the H1 substitute. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Chair Breen.
Aye.
Representatives Edwards.
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Hope.
Yes.
Arbit. Devendorf.
Yes.
Hoskins.
Yes.
Cerniglu.
Yes.
Fink.
No.
Wenzel.
No.
Wozniak.
No.
Outman.
Pass.
Johnson.
No.
Madam Chair, you have 7 yeas, 4 nays, 1 pass. The substitute is adopted.
Thank you. I will now take a motion from Representative Carter to report Senate Bill 206 as sub H1 with recommendation. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Chair Breen.
Aye.
Representatives Edwards.
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Hope.
Yes.
Arbit. Devendorf.
Yes.
Hoskins.
Yes.
Cerniglu.
Yes.
Fink.
No.
Wenzel.
No.
Wozniak.
No.
Outman.
No.
Johnson.
No.
Madam Chair, you have 7 yeas, 5 nays, 0 pass. The motion prevails.
Thank you. Last but not least, we're turning now to Senate Bill 207. I have an H1 substitute for this bill before the committee. I will take a motion from Representative Hope to adopt the H1 substitute for Senate Bill 207. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Chair Breen.
Aye.
Representatives Edwards.
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Hope.
Yes.
Arbit. Devendorf.
Yes.
Hoskins.
Yes.
Cerniglu.
Yes.
Fink.
No.
Wenzel.
No.
Wozniak.
No.
Outman.
Pass.
Johnson.
No.
Madam Chair, you have 7 yeas, 4 nays, 1 pass. The substitute is adopted.
Thank you. I will now take a motion from Representative Devendorf to report Senate Bill 207 as sub H1 with recommendation. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Chair Breen.
Aye.
Representatives Edwards,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Hope. Yes. Arvet. Devendorf,
Yes.
Hoskins,
Yes.
Cerniglu,
Yes.
Fink,
No.
Wenzel,
No.
Wozniak,
No.
Outman,
No.
Johnson.
No.
Madam Chair, you have 7 yeas, 5 nays, 0 pass. The motion prevails.
Thank you. I will now take a motion from Representative Hoskins to excuse any absent members. Seeing no additional business before the committee, we stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.